So when all this started to happen, we started to really progress quickly in the industry world, making gaming accessible for a lot of different gamers with different types of abilities. Microsoft, big publishers of games, were started to do a lot of work inside the game to make gaming accessible for gamers. That conversation is a whole nother conversation outside of this one. This one's more for the hardware and the physical barriers to being able to play. So just know that a big part of accessibility in gaming happens inside the console in the software side, as well as inside the games on the software side. So there's a huge push for advocacy and accessibility in that space as well. But I started looking at a doctorate in, probably 2020 or so, maybe a little bit earlier than that. And I saw that University of Wisconsin Milwaukee had a assistive technology focused doctorate, and I was really fell in love with the idea that I could go back and focus on that. And so once I started that, I knew that there was going to be a doctoral capstone and different types of doctoral work that would come from it. And so I really set on a mission at that point to kind of figure out a different way to make gaming accessibility more, pun intended, accessible for healthcare professionals, educators, anybody that might be working with kiddos or adults with disabilities to be able to play. So I've been on about a 4 or 5 year journey to do that, right? So, um, and the problem was I would get people, I got really good at this, and I would get a lot of people that would call out to me and say, "Hey, Eric, I've got this patient who wants to game but can't. Do you think you could help me?" Or, "I've got this kid who, really wants to be able to play, but they can't. Could you help me?" And of course, I would always say, "Absolutely, I will help you." And I would help them work through it. But at some point in time, at one point in time, it just got to be almost too overwhelming. Like there's too many people asking for that help. And then also there were some other barriers, like regulations and policy wouldn't allow me to like see the patient or see their their limbs or anything like that, right? I just and I need to do that. I need to be able to get my eyes on because of, how am I going to recommend something if I don't really see the person that I'm recommending it to? So I was like, well, what if I can't necessarily see everybody or I don't have the bandwidth? Like, can I make something for somebody or for a group of individuals to be able to do that? And so, um, I thought about kind of a typical healthcare approach. So, and I know a lot of you are in the school systems and academia, but this all kind of is a very similar type place, right? We first things first, we do an evaluation of the client, take a look at them. What are their abilities? What are the things that they can do? What are some of the barriers to engagement? And then I want to be able to set some goals. And so the same thing with like in gaming, I'm going to set goals for that and then develop some kind of treatment plan. So when I approach this whole thing, I was like, I need that kind of flow to be able to most adequately help somebody in the gaming space for long term things. And um, so I came up with this website called the Rehab Arcade. And this has been a passion project of mine that, like I said, it started for a few years ago. And I have since just kind of, it has grown and grown and gotten to a point where I'm like very proud of what it is and what it's becoming. And right now I currently have a doctoral capstone student working on it. I've had a couple others, as well as 2 years of integrated projects in the schools that I've worked with to create what you're seeing. And this is a resource for you. If you have no idea what to do with a game or how to set somebody up for accessibility, this is for you. This is why I built it. It's completely free. It's I've paid for it with my blood and tears, so so you could reap the benefits of it. But it's called the Rehab Arcade. The website's pretty simple, the rehabarcade.com. And and let's take a look a little bit about what's in there, right? So um, I wanted to empower therapists, educators with just giving different types of tools and solutions all in one space. So I know that you could pop on YouTube and find something. I know that you could Google something, maybe Chat GPT can help you find something. But if you were to want to really focus on some specific areas that somebody had already done the work on, this is I wanted to make that resource for you and easy. So the first thing I wanted to do was a therapeutic game generator. I'm not going to spend too much time on it, but I will show you kind of what that looks like. Wanted a hub for evidence, right? So I mentioned before that gaming has always come with this idea that it's not as important. It shouldn't be focused on too much, and I wanted to make sure that there was evidence to back the science behind what we're doing and why we're doing it. So I did a hub for evidence, and then I did a consolidated space for game accessibility solutions, and that's mostly what we're going to talk about today. So if you weren't sure what to do, how to do it, how to use something, it's all there for you. So let's first just talk about the therapeutic gaming generator. And again, I'm not going to spend too much time, but if you can see at the top in the headings, there's several different subheadings there that let you go to different places. So game generator being one. And if you clicked on the game generator, it takes you to this page right here. And this essentially takes you through a narrative that helps you figure out what you need for your specific client. So think about if you were in a clinic, the very first thing that you would want to do is say, I'm going to start, right? So of course you're going to start. And then you're going to say, well, what kind of system do you have there? Do you have a Nintendo? Do you have an Xbox? Let's say I have a Nintendo. And I say, okay, well, what Nintendo do you have? Let's say I have the one of the most current ones, the Nintendo Switch. And then what would I want to be able to use it on? And I want to work on cognition. And maybe my patient wants to play like an adventure game, right? Well, then it comes up with 10 different adventure games on the system that you're playing with that would be able to give you a way to do some therapeutic gaming. And really that leads us into the next section, which would be the evidence behind it, right? So what's to say that me playing, Super Mario Bros. Or something is going to increase cognition or whatever to help with cognition? And that's where I came with kind of that evidence part of it. So if you looked and clicked on evidence, which you'll see now, it's going to take you to a page that has a consolidated space that is all different types of peer-reviewed research, different places online where you can get information and studies on different types of therapeutic places. And so whether you're working on therapeutic exercise or cognition or whatever, there's going to have a lot of stuff. So in this space, we're going to say cognition, like I said before, and in cognition, it'll show a bunch of different peer-reviewed journals like playing Super Mario Brothers increases hippocampal gray matter in older adults, right? And so if I click on that, that'll take me to the peer-reviewed journal where that actually lives, right? So so that's the therapeutic side of it. But for accessible gaming solutions, which what we're talking most about today, I also wanted to do a very robust, thorough space to explore game accessibility solutions. So, like I said before, whenever I'm approaching a client, the very first thing that I want to do is an evaluation. So, if you think about when I was doing my time in my doctorate, that sounds like prison, but maybe it kind of was. But when I was doing my time in my doctorate, I took a course with Dr. Michelle Silverman, who is actually, part of this this call today, and a part of AT Forward. But during the course, we were looking at evaluations and instruments and evaluating their efficacy, the reliability, and whatnot. And one of the questions that she had said to us was, where's the gaps? Where's the gaps in assistive technology evaluation tools that we need to fill? And one of the things that came right to my, very first thing was, oh my gosh, there's no place that there's no tool that evaluates accessibility for gamers. It's just kind of like you kind of eyeball it and wing it, which we do with a lot of things, but I wanted to formalize this process. So I came up with my doctoral capstone was coming up with this tool. And again, if I'm doing an evaluation first thing, I know that where do I start, right? So for the Game Accessibility Hub, I need to start with the evaluation. I need to make sure that that is the very first thing that I do, because if I can gather that information, that's going to really kind of help tell the narrative of the decisions that I make, right? So evaluate client, that's the number one, that's the first thing, right? The next thing is so that is the game accessibility. So I'm going to talk about the evaluation tool itself. So the tool is called Gaming Assessment for Measurement for Enabled User Performance. And essentially what I did was, as I was putting it together, I went out and did a big needs assessment all over the United States, the world really, and just said, do you know if there's any other tools out there that does this? And when I got my response back, you can see a massive amount of people, 93% said that they do not know of any formal evaluation tool. Matter of fact, that 7%, when they responded with what was it, it wasn't anything formal. It was kind of an already established assessment that does some other things. So really that number is even higher than what it is. And then the next question, one of the other questions that was significant was, what is your confidence in accessible gaming? Like, could you set somebody up with accessibility options in video games? And you can see, like, if you put it all together, there's, almost, it's over like 80% that are either neither confident or somewhat unconfident or not confident at all to be able to do that. There was only a small amount, 14%, that said that they were confident with it. So I knew that this was going to be something that was important for people. I also wanted to make the tool, I prioritized the tool in a space that said I was looking at their abilities instead of their deficits. I think that we get stuck in deficits so often that it just really blinds our view of what they can do. And so the tool, if you download it, you'll see that everything that it does is highlights something that they have. And so as I go through it, I want to make sure that they know you have this, and then you have that, and you have this, and you have that. And I think that's a really powerful thing for the person that I'm working with. Essentially, if a client has access to any controlled human performance factor, they can engage in gaming. And I'm speaking to the choir, preaching the choir here, and I know that you guys already know a lot of this. But if I can have anything, sip and puff, if I can have head movement, I can do a lot of different things in the game world. And so that's where the Game Up tool comes. So if you look at it, and I'll just scroll through it real quick. You can download a copy. I have it on the last slide. You'll be able to see it. But first things first, I just introduce what the gaming controller inputs are. Like, so if you had a controller, what is it? What's there? There's shoulder bumpers, there's trigger buttons, there's system button, a menu option button, there's touchpad, trackpads, light bars. Like, you need to understand what goes into a controller before that. Then I wanted to look at what are the functions of the body. It's body movement, brain activities, breathing, thinking. And so you would go through each person and you would do a very specific evaluation as to what their movement looks like, what they can do, and then you'll check the box on they can do this, they can do this, they can do that. And then you'll eventually come up to the end, which I'll show you some screenshots of this in a little bit. Where you can consolidate all that information, say, here are 22 different types of things or places that you can use on this person that you're working with to be able to play. And so that's kind of what the tool looks like, right? And again, one of the things that as I was developing it, I wanted to establish was a foundation of knowledge for evaluators. So if you didn't know something, you would be able to find it pretty much on your own in this tool, kind of like a gaming 101. It also gives solutions for human performance, but not designed to give accessibility solutions, right? So I gave you, you'll see here in a minute, I actually have a space where you can find the solutions, but this tool was designed just to see what the client can do. Once I have that, then I can come up with the solutions in a different place. I did a lot of in-person use and evaluation. I used this for a bunch of different types of clients. I had clients with CP, clients that had spinal cord injuries, amputees, all kinds of different ones to use the tool on and see if it was working, and then modify it as necessary. So you'll come up again, you'll have this checklist. You can do it online, or you can do it via just hand jam it with a paper and pencil. And then it would come up with some solutions at the end. And then again, if you wanted to download a copy, there's a QR code here. And then at the end, I have a website link to where you can download your copy. Or you can go to the Rehab Arcade where there's a copy as well. Again, I wanted to include resources so you can see a list of different places where you can actually find these different gadgets and accessibility solutions. So if you didn't know what those were, here's a bunch of resources for that. And also you can go to the Rehab Arcade, which would also have those things. And currently, my current student, doctoral capstone student, is modifying this list and making a great space for people to be able to find those. So if you go back to the Rehab Arcade, so you did your evaluation, now you have all these things. Now I need accessibility solutions, right? Now I know what I can use as far as the human that I'm working with goes, and I want to be able to kind of figure out more that I can do with them in the gaming hub part of it. So if I look in here and I go past the game accessibility tool, it comes with 4 different categories of game accessibility solutions. So if I'm working with motor control solutions, I'm going to go ahead and click on that, and it has a pretty robust list of different motor control areas. And everything from the adaptive controller to using splints to different gaming solutions and whatnot. And if you click on those, it'll tell you not only how or what they are, but how to set them up, and then also where to buy them. So you have kind of like a full kind of understanding where that is. Now, I will say this isn't perfect yet. We're working on it, and I have a lot of, again, my students are kind of working to flesh out the depth of it, because there's a lot. But this is where we're kind of at right now, and where we're trying to work on moving forward with it. So as you're looking at some of these, you're going to see a bunch of different types of stuff, right? And again, the hub itself has a bunch of different options. So if you're like, I just need to know how to move the character around, then there's a joystick section or analog stick session. Or if I just need different buttons and switches, things that are options out there, there's a section for that as well. I also noticed that I have mounts, and as you know, as other AT professionals, mounts are one of the greatest things that you can master and have a good if you have a good mount game, then you're going to be able to help somebody at almost any point in time. So mounts is going to be a section as well, although we haven't fleshed that out just yet. So that said, there's a bunch of different ways that we can do it, and I wanted to show just a couple of different ways that we've done it. I don't want to spend a ton of time on there because I do want to leave a little bit of time in the end to be able to answer some questions. But I mentioned this before, splinting, and I know that, if you're in the educator space, you may not have necessarily a splinting option when it comes to low temperature thermoplastic splints that OTs might use in a clinic. But those things you can buy those things online. You can heat up water in a good, easy way to mold one of these in a academia setting, just using a fry pan or something like that. So just to know that that's out there. You can also do prefabricated splints. You can use different things that just can put hands or wrists in place. Sometimes a simple wrist splint will do the job. But splinting has always been something that I've gone to just in case. Excuse me, just in case I needed just a tiny amount of of access to a controller or something. And maybe that's using a one-handed game or something, but but splinting has always been really a good option. This next slide kind of looks at some of the things that we've done. Hold on one second. I know that I'm getting a bunch of messages. Let me just see what these messages. Let's see if there's any questions that I can answer before. Okay, okay. Um, okay. Thank you for congratulations. Yes. And
No real
oh,
question.
cool.
Just Mike
Yeah.
was
Sorry, I just
asking if,
making sure there wasn't anything I
yeah.
missed. All
Mike
right,
said if you
cool.
want a challenge, please make one that you can control with the head. I can't use my hands at all. And so I think you've got that covered.
Okay, okay. Yeah, there is a lot of actually there's a one that's not in this slide, my slide deck, and that is we have a new I have a somebody that I met at Resna a couple years ago who is working on a mouse uh, basically it's a trackpad on the roof of your mouth that you control with your tongue. And it's a really cool device. I'm not sure if that it's on the market yet, but it is in development. So, being able to use something like that. And of course, everybody's a little bit different. So, maybe using a chin or using um, there's eye tracking solutions. There's also if you guys are familiar with the quad stick, it's a great solution also for no-handed controls or very high spinal cord injuries. Um, that's always like a really good one as well. Though it is a little challenging to set up, so that comes with it as well. Um, but if you see, so what you're seeing here is these are some early concepts. So think about, you're an AT working with, whatever, trying to figure out solutions for different gamers and whatnot. And when we started on, there wasn't a lot of people doing this. There was a couple big box, companies that had some, one size fits all solutions. But when Ken Jones, he's the engineer that I met up with for Warfighter. Ken Jones, we started looking at different ways to just adapt the current controllers out there to be able to play. And so, if you look at the controller to the picture on the left, it's a traditional Xbox controller, and he took all the components from the left side of the controller and he drilled in holes to the right side and he put all those controls in the right side of the controller. So if you were to do a one-handed gamer, or if you're a one-handed gamer on the right side, you could be able to hit all the buttons that you needed and everything was over there on the right side that you didn't have access to on the left. Or if it was even bigger than that, sometimes it's just, I hate to say that's a simple solution, but sometimes we have to get a little bit more complex with it. And so the controller on the right side is a controller that we have built up thumbsticks, which you can kind of see that there's some built up thumbsticks on. But also, we have taken the buttons from the controller itself and we've pulled them off the controller and made them into bigger switches and buttons outside of the controller. And so I'm still using the thumbsticks, but I can use more gross motor movements uh, for the uh, for the other buttons and whatnot that I can't have access to normally. So that took a lot of programming. It would have, we had to solder different things in different places and then pull all the switches out. And we use 3D printing to kind of do most of what we needed to as far as the boxes and mounting the switches and buttons, for those. But those were some of the more simple solutions. You can even see the picture on the right there is a D-pad, a 3D printed D-pad that has a knob that comes up from it, which traditionally does not have a knob. And you can see the picture on the left does not have a knob on it. Those are the traditional ones. So that whole controller has been kind of off-boarded and manipulated so somebody could play. Some of those are somewhat easy solutions, but if you look at even more complex solutions, sometimes we would have gamers without hands at all or the ability to hold anything. And so we would make gaming rigs and whatnot. And so these are two different types of ways that we would use it. We could do kind of a lap platform where we have a controller mounted And so it's already holding the controller for them, and then off board maybe a movement, the left-sided joystick, and then maybe if they have feet, we'll have some foot controls as well. So we'll kind of use different ways to set them up. So sometimes it does get a little bit complex. The picture on your right is one of our gamers who had lost both of his hands, and he has a couple different switches there. You can see that there is an arcade style controller um, uh, joystick on to his far left, and that was for his D-pad. And then in the middle, he actually has we 3D printed a box that has two switches, lever switches on the sides, and then in the middle he has an analog stick to be able to manipulate the left side of the controller. Then on the right side, with his right arm, he has the same kind of thing with two switches, lever switches in a box with the controller in the middle. But he also has a few different switches that can control other buttons from the thing itself. So that is a more complex thing. You can see that at the time, this was early on when we were working on stuff. We were using kind of, our own little tools and techniques and just cutting wood and trying to make it work for whoever. We have since come up with better solutions, but that's a really good kind of picture of what that looks like. And you can see different ways. We've used different hospital stands or different trays, bedside tables, couch trays, or whatever, to be able to help people play. Sometimes we'll build onto a power chair just to have like a full gaming setup so they don't have to transition into some other type of gaming space. But both of those pictures are good examples of some other AT type of uh, build outs that we've had for game controllers. And the one on the right is for PlayStation, the one on the left, I believe, is for an Xbox. So early on, this is like how we did all these things. And if you were to kind of fast forward, this was kind of where the conversation originally happened with Xbox, where we are like, we're doing all these things. They're like, this is amazing. Could we take some of those concepts, put them into kind of a hub so you don't have to rip apart our controllers and, drill holes in them and pull, cords and solder things that shouldn't be in there. And so that's where we came up with the concept of the adaptive controller. So if you're familiar with the adaptive controller, and I have one right here, on the back side of it, it has 19 different ports that control different things on the controller itself. So if you had a traditional controller, these are all the things that the traditional controller has. And then on the side, you have two USB inputs that would be for your joysticks. These are all 3.5 millimeter inputs, so your typical headphone jack. And so a lot of the buttons and switches that you guys are familiar with, the jelly bean buttons or any AT switch, you could pretty much plug into the adaptive controller and be able to play. I'm not saying all of them, but most of them. And that was very intentional with being able to do that. There's also some proximity sensors in there. We have proximity sensors. We have leg switches, hand switches, arm switches, all kinds of different things. And I'll show you kind of a little bit more a picture of kind of how those things kind of work out. But the adaptive controller was really literally a game changer, pun intended, because now we wouldn't have to go out of our way to, break something down. It would save us a ton of time. It's all plug and play. So if I'm in the middle of a game and want to, put this button on this other switch, I can do it very quickly. And actually, I'm going to take this opportunity. I'm going to be traveling up to Wisconsin this weekend, actually tomorrow, and I will be putting on doing evaluations for adaptive gaming at a conference. Actually, Michelle, if you have a minute, and if you can drop in the link to
Yeah, I'm
that,
grabbing the link right now. Yeah.
perfect. That'd be great.
Also,
Go
Eric, a
ahead.
couple people asked about cognitive access, if you
Yeah,
have anything
yeah,
for cognitive access as well.
yeah. That's great. It's a great question, and so. Let me finish this and I'll get into cognition here in just a minute. So just remind me to mention that. But if you were to want to see this, we have volunteer positions, but there's an adaptive gaming expo happening up in Madison this weekend, and I think Michelle's going to drop the link into that, and I'm sure we can get you that information. But it happens on Saturday, and if you're curious, if you want to kind of put your hands on some of these tools that I'm showing you today, I'd be happy to show you and let you kind of see how they all work. But anyway, all that to say, all those there's all kinds of different ways that we can kind of figure out different gaming solutions. And again, some of it is going to depend on what type of mounts and the ability to kind of set somebody up. But at the end of the day, if you have the right client with the right stuff, we're going to be able to get you to game in one way or another. And to have a better kind of look at what that adaptive controller looks like, this is a bigger kind of space on the screen. So you can see there's a whole bunch of different inputs and whatnot there. It also uses USB-C to charge it. It is fully wireless, so you can use it via Bluetooth with the system. But also you can have it hardwired to the system itself too if you wanted to use that. And of course, USB-C being a very user-friendly input. But there's a lot of different things that you see there, and I'm not going to go into too many details on that, but you can kind of see what came with the adaptive controller. Now, since there's been a couple other adaptive controllers, and they have some good things, some bad things, and we'll chat about those in a second. These are few different setups that I just wanted to show you that I've had with different clients. Sometimes it's going to be super simple and they just need a couple things. But if you look at the picture on the far left, the biggest challenge in general when you're looking at gaming is that most game systems and controllers require two joysticks, one on the left, one on the right. And that's really tough when you're trying to also manipulate buttons and switches, because if you're using the joysticks, how are you going to press the other things? And so that's what the biggest challenge is. So if you're a one-handed gamer, a no-handed gamer, it becomes a lot more challenging. So if you see the gamer on the left, he has two residual limbs that can manipulate those joysticks. And if you notice, like on his foot, I have another switch set up. I could as easily had 4 or 5 different buttons on the ground. And anybody that's been an amputee for any amount of time has figured, and they have their legs and feet, has figured out that their feet are very powerful tools. So at the end of the day, if you need to set up somebody that way, you can as well. And you can see the young man that I was playing games with in the center picture. He has a setup like that. He's using the joystick with one of his feet, and then he has a cascade of different buttons on his left foot with 4 different buttons there. In this same picture, I just want to point out that you'll notice that I'm also holding a controller, and I'm using a concept that I use with a lot of different patients or clients that is called they renamed it. It used to be called Copilot. Now it's called Controller Access, I believe. And what it does is essentially it lets you play any game with any person with 2 controllers. So think about if you were to play Mario Brothers, and I wanted to help like my kid play, or somebody that maybe didn't have the cognitive components to be able to do every single thing in there. What I can do is I can take 2 controllers, give them a command, say, all I want you to do is jump when it's time to jump, and I'll move the character and shoot the fireballs. If you're trying to grade the activity, if there is a cognitive deficit where there's too many requests from the games, you can grade the activity to make it a little bit easier. So if we are looking at cognition, this could be one of the solutions. I'll talk about some of the other solutions here in a minute. But you essentially can break out the controller into 2 separate controllers. So I can manipulate some of it, and then the client can manipulate some of it at the same time. So it's a really great option. It's already built into the consoles. So like if you have an Xbox, one and on, um, from the past decade plus, it'll already be hardwired into that system to be able to do that. So that's a really great tool if you have somebody who can't just do everything. So you might just be able to do things together. And the setup on the right, it's a setup that I would use. He has his right hand, otherwise he's a triple amputee, and so I have a cascaded set of buttons for him on the right side. I have a joystick on the right side as well. Or I'm sorry, it's right side of the picture on his left hand residual limb, and so he's using a lot of controls on the left side. I also have a couple lever switches that are positioned above his left thigh, and so if he abducts or adducts his thigh, he will also be able to hit a couple switches there. So another, just a different setup. These are some of the warfighter switches that we've made. Again, you can kind of see how some of them work and can be used. There's some small switches and analog sticks. There's bigger ones. There's ones that you can already that you can tack on to the bottom of existing controllers. We've also made them so that you can swap out different types of mounts. Either it's a goalpost or arcade style or a palm stick or whatever. So there's a bunch of different options there as well. All right, so last thing that I want to kind of mention before I talk a little bit about that cognition, and I know I'm running out of time, but there's a lot of new things coming out. The picture on your left actually just won the Best Innovation for 2024 in accessibility for gaming, and it's called the BioWave Proteus. And it basically, you can manipulate any of those. There's 4 boxes that you can put anywhere, and you can set them up in different ways and turn them and whatnot and set it up, in the best way for the client. That Xbox adaptive joystick is the one in the middle. That's the one that just came out from Xbox about a month ago. And it also comes with the STL files to 3D print different types of manipulations or whatever to build up the stick itself. So that's pretty cool as well. And then, of course, the last one is the Xbox Access, or I'm sorry, the PlayStation Access controller, which is PlayStation's version of their accessible controller. It's got some great features, and it's got some features that aren't as great, but the fact that we're actually even talking that they formally made one is a big deal. All right, so I'd love your feedback. I'd be happy to answer questions, but I'm going to leave this up here for a second. And I do want to say, for cognition, some of you have asked about that. So one of the biggest things when it comes to cognition is the hardware side and the software side of the games. And so when we do advocacy and talk to game developers and hardware developers, we try to help them manipulate the in-game content. So for example, if something's happening very quickly on screen, and you have to make choices very quickly, and if you don't, your character dies. It's not very accessible, especially if you have a brain injury or executive function cognition deficit. So we've talked a lot to developers, and a lot of games are doing this now, and that they will do turn-based style things so that you can sit there, take your time, make a decision, and then hit enter essentially, and then it'll go ahead and execute the action. Or they'll make it like almost a slow motion type of component where it slows the game down for you so that you can make the appropriate choices in the appropriate spaces. And so there's also different things where they have high contrast, low contrast solutions where you can basically make the things of interest come out. And so if you're looking to, let's say, defeat the enemy is in red, the good guys are in green, and everything else is grayed out. Or if there's an object of interest on the screen, it'll highlight that. It will also maybe give you haptic feedback so you can feel that something is close and important. So there's a lot of different ways that developers in-game have manipulated to be able to make those games a little bit more accessible in general.